name is Louella Archer. I'm 66 years old. I originally grew up in the old part of Clarksville, but for the past 22 years I lived in Henryville. Raised my family mostly there, and since leaving there I've moved here in this house that is fully accessible to me.
And this is Jeffersonville?
Jeffersonville, yes.
Well, let's go back, because your story really starts with Tornado Day, doesn't it?
Yes.
Let's go back to March 2nd. Probably like everybody else, you got up in the morning and heard those dire weather reports. So
Right.
kind of take me through what happened to you that day.
Well, I was scheduled to work that day. I worked at the Family Dollar. I was assistant manager there, and I was scheduled to go to work at 4 o'clock. Like you said, I, got up and heard all the weathermen, and it's not too unusual around here when the weather's turning bad that the weathermen like to, track the storms and break in and do all that. My daughter and her husband and her daughter were living with me at the time, and we would keep going out on the front porch and look at it being dark over in the west, and because we've done that for so many years, I kept looking at it, and I kept saying,
Okay, hang on a minute. We've got somebody.
Hang on just a sec. Hold on for a minute. I'm going to tilt that phone the other way.
Let's go back to the part about looking out at the west and seeing the storm.
yeah. I looked out the west because most of our storms come that way, and we do get storms. We got a lot of wind and things blowing, but no tornadoes or anything that really resembles a tornado. And I kept telling my son-in-law and my daughter, I said, it's going to be nothing. I said, it's going to blow over to Salem. They always blow over to Salem. And so we kept looking, and I had to be at work at 4, but for some reason, as it got later and later, and towards 3, I don't know, I just didn't get ready to go to work. I'm not sure why, but I didn't. And then I heard them say that it looked like it was heading for Henryville, that we were going to be in for a pretty bad storm. So I called up at the store. I lived pretty close to it, within walking distance. And I called up there because I wanted to make sure that the ladies that were working knew about it. We're not supposed to play a radio, during working hours, and I wanted them to know that. And they said, yeah, they had got permission to turn it, and they knew that it was going to happen, and so they were listening, and so I just kind of stood out on the front porch and watched it, and so it got fairly close, and I looked up at it, and I could tell it was a funnel cloud, but when you see them on TV, they're always white. This was the dirtiest funnel cloud I had ever seen. I mean, it was just black. And again, I said to my son-in-law, is that the funnel cloud? They're always white. And he said, that's all the debris it has picked up. So I started getting a little scared then. And I had another son. I have 5 children. 2 of them live in Clarksville. But I had another son, and he came over. And my grandson, who goes to Henryville, he was a sophomore that year. He took the bus and came to my house because he knew I had a basement. And I got him downstairs. I got all the dogs downstairs and all my kids and the grandkids. And so I couldn't get hold of my other son who lived on Bartle Knob Road. I found out later he tried to come into Henryville, but they turned him away. They would not let anyone in. So he stood it out at the truck stops. But at that time, I had no idea where they were or if the storms were really bad for them. So when I heard it roar, and it does truly roar like a freight train, I had never heard that before. It was frightening. And we all hit the basement, and we were down there not long. I mean, it just seemed like it went over and flattened everything in just mere seconds. And we came up from the basement, and I looked out the backyard, and I had trees out there that were just uprooted. I looked at my next door neighbor, and he had one of the aluminum storage sheds. It was just flattened and everything in it. And I went around front, and trees were all in the front yard and the streets. And my car had been moved cattywampus, and it had been blowing, and I really didn't look at too much. My immediate thought then, I knew my kids were all right, the grandkids were all right. My immediate thought was the store. I've got to get up to the store. So I started out running, and my son turned the car around and picked me up. He said, "Mom, there's going to be wires everywhere. You've got to be careful." So he took me up to the store, and my manager and my district manager were there. And that was before the hailstorm hit. And I no sooner got there than the hailstorm hit, and we all went in the bathroom. And it blew out the front windows. Of course, the store was just kind of like a metal building, and it sounded horrible, and we were all in the back just crying. And it finally eased up, and we went back out front. The glass was all broken out from the front. The lights, of course, were off. Nobody could get cell reception. We had heard that the school was damaged, and I think first report we heard 50 kids were in there, and you know, you can't get an exact number. I mean, you're just hearing things, and so it was quite frightening. But when I got up there, all of a sudden, people started coming into the store, and they wanted flashlights, they wanted candles, they wanted tarps, warm clothing. I mean, the store is so close to the epicenter, I guess, of where it hit, that, you know, everybody showed up. And our electric was off. We had freezers full of milk and frozen food, and we just started pulling out carts and filling them, and to take down to the church. And I stayed down there till probably 1 or 2 that night. I knew everybody at my home was fine, and I knew that, you know, there were some windows blown out, but there were my older children that were there and could take care of it. And we emptied the shelves with water, to take down there, blankets, pillows, coats, lighters, flashlights, batteries, anything anybody could use. We just took it down, and, you know, I ran carts back and forth between the store and St. Francis all night, and till we finally got somebody to board up the store, and by that time everything was pretty much gone. Coolers were gone, grills were gone, you know, all of that stuff we had run out of. And we knew that the store was going to be closed for quite some time. We weren't sure how long, but after that I walked back home and was really just in a daze. I had never seen anything so horrible and so frightening, and all of the news trucks, and of course walking this stuff over to the church, I got to see the school and the condition it was in, and we knew by then that all of the children had been okay, but I mean, it just, where the tornado went through and the trees were just broken, it looked like somebody had taken a bulldozer to build a new highway through there. So that was it. All of our electricity was off, you know, for I don't know how many days, several days. And we didn't hear any of the news reports of anything. You know, the next day I got up and went down to church, and I had keys to the store, and I went to the store to see if there was anything else that, you know, might be useful to take back down there. And to tell you the truth, it was, I couldn't stay away, but I couldn't stay at home. It was, I don't know, my brother, who was a fireman in Clarksville until he retired, told me, he said, "You're suffering post-traumatic stress syndrome." He said, and everybody around here is going to be. He said, it's just too much for a person to take in all at once. And my other son, who lived in Clarksville, had made it down. He came down the expressway, and of course there was traffic stopped all along the expressway. And when he got to our exit, he told the policeman that, you know, his mother lived there, and they let him park along the edge and walk in, but would not let him drive in. So he came in to make sure we were all right, and called my brother and told him that we were okay too. So for days afterwards, you know, I'm sure that you all were up there and part of it, and saw how horrible it was. I mean, you wanted to sit and cry, and you know, you wanted to cry because the school your children went to was not going to be the school your grandchildren went to, and you know, the places that you knew so well were gone, and you know, maybe the people were not going to rebuild and come back, and it was your community. It was the toughest thing I'd ever gone through. It really was. And so, you know, I tried to be down there every day doing a little bit of whatever I could do. And our store was closed probably a week, maybe a week and a half before they could finally get it open. But of course, because of the curfew, we closed at 6, and we didn't have a lot of people who came in. And, you know, when we did, a lot of the people who came in were looking for totes and things like that, and we would tell them, you know, there are totes available, you know, but the churches, the different places, please don't, you know, don't spend your money on that. The people are donating so much. And my brother came up, I think 2 days later, and one of his friends to cut up all the trees in the backyard. And I had many that had blown down, and they were out back cutting trees, and a big truck full of young people who looked college age drove up, and they weren't using the power tools, but they carried all of the wood up to the front of the house so it could be picked up, and they just knocked that job out in no time at all. And you know, my brother and his friend were older. I mean, we're close in age, and it was, you know, a blessing to have the young kids to come up and do that. And then even after we went back to work, and they would have dinners at the First Baptist Church, they bring us stuff over to eat, and you know, we saw the best of humankind. And I didn't know that there were that many people that could care so much for people they didn't even know. And you know, it would make you at times just sit and cry for the beauty of it.
When did you start feeling bad?
I started feeling bad towards the end of March. My nephew-in-law, he was actually my nephew, was getting married, and he had been going with his girlfriend for many years, all through college and graduation, and they had decided to get married. And I was looking forward to doing that. They had, I worked a lot of hours because, as you know, in those kind of businesses, there's usually young people that work, and they have kids, and if the kids get sick, they need time off, and I was always the one that they would call, because I had raised my family, and I didn't mind going in and working for them. And but I had put on the calendar, you know, big stars, Louella off, going to a wedding and looking forward to it. And the day before I got sick, we had gone, my daughter and I had gone to the drugstore to get new nail polish, and we were just so excited about the wedding. And I went to work then that evening, and I unloaded the truck, an 800-piece truck, and did some stocking and felt fine. And just a quick turnaround, I started feeling bad. Not a sore throat, not an earache, not the flu, just I don't feel right. I need to lay down. I need to. And I wondered if I could even, you know, count the money and close the store, but I managed to do that. And drove home, and my daughter always saved supper for me, and I went in and I told her, I said, I don't want any supper, I am so sick, I want to go to bed. And she said, well, let me take your temperature. Well, it was 104.7, and I said, oh, something's wrong with the thermometer, give me some Tylenol, and I went to bed. I laid in bed the next day and didn't go to work. And then the following day was the wedding, and I had been really out of it. The Tylenol would take my fever down some, but not much. And I told her, I said, Lauren, I can't make it to the wedding. I said, tell them I'm sick. And the day after the wedding, she came in and she said, Mom, you've got to go to the emergency room. I can't help you anymore. So we went to Scott County because it was closest, and truly, we were just thinking flu. And she walked me into Scott County, into the emergency room, and I sat in the little plastic chairs, and that is the last I remember of anything. I went into a coma. They kept me 3 days there. They couldn't do anything with me. They asked if, this is our hearsay because obviously I was not to myself. They asked my children, my brother, if they could transfer me to Clark County. And they said yes. I was at Clark County a month. They had me on a respirator and a feeding tube. They wanted to do exploratory surgery because they had cultured looking for any kind of bacteria they could find. And my brother and his wife and my children all talked about it, and they said, yeah, do the exploratory surgery. I had these horrible things all up and down my legs and my arms. They were huge blisters, and they said I weighed about 170 pounds and my face was just huge. They did exploratory surgery. They did not find anything wrong with me. They told them I had maybe a 10 to 12% chance of living. If I didn't have the surgery, I would have no chance of living. And my family called the priest in and gave me last rites. And when I came out of surgery, I stayed at Clark County for about another 3 to 4 weeks and was not getting any better. And they asked if they could transfer me to Jewish, which they did. And I was at Jewish probably just a couple of weeks, and I came out of a coma, and my daughter was there, and I looked up. I mean, she was very close to me, and I said, Lauren, what are you doing here? And she said, Mom, do you know me? And I said, well, of course I know you. I said, you're Lauren, my daughter. She said, do you know where you are? And I said, no, home, I guess. And she proceeded to tell me all of this. Well, I looked down, and my arms, both of my arms and both of my legs looked like I had been put on a charcoal grill. They were just black and crispy. And from that point on, it was doctors and more doctors. They came in and told them that they would have to amputate. My legs and arms had started turning black at Clark County, and they don't know, whether it was the bacteria. The doctors at Jewish, Dr. Mahmood, who was my infectious disease doctor, Dr. Weaver, who was my leg doctor, they seemed to think that it could have been possible some type of bacteria that was picked up because this tornado was so large and came so far and picked up so much stuff. But there was really no way to tell. And, they did come in and amputate my legs and my arms, and they did them each at a different time, about 3 days apart. And eventually they were able to take me off the respirator and the feeding tube, and I was on many different kinds of bacteria, antibiotics, many types of pain medicine, a PICC line, morphine, and I don't know what all. And I guess I was a month or so at Jewish, and they moved me to Frazier, where they then started, I didn't have any prosthetics, but they then started therapy to get me ready for prosthetics, which was just basic exercises of, raising your legs and your arms and things like that. And from there, it was so far, and that's when they were doing the bridge work. I moved to therapy at Kindred in Sellersburg, and I was there a year. Well, not quite a year, I don't think. And then as I got my legs, Kentucky Prosthetics was who did my legs, and they did my legs first, and I learned to walk using a walker, and then gradually walking on my own. The walking didn't seem to be a big problem to me. The hands are a little difficult. I have to admit I'm not very good at those right now, but I have had therapy with those, and these, they're top of the line, invented in 2012, and any kind of new technology, you're going to have some quirks and things that they have to be sent back to Columbus, Ohio, and retooled and sent back to me then. But I was determined. Matt, the prosthetic doctor for my legs, asked me what made me so determined, and the only thing I can think of was I was so active to begin with, so terribly active, that I was going to be as active as I could be. I was not going to be wheelchair bound. The time that I was, when I was in all of the hospitals, I learned that television was not my cup of tea. I could not watch TV for the rest of my life, and I wanted to be back on my own. My family were scared to death for me to be on my own. My children, even now, if I tend to stumble, and I've learned to fall, but if I tend to stumble, they're jumping up very quickly to catch me, and I can fall and not get hurt real bad. But I knew I was going to walk Truman, and I wanted a house of my own, and I wanted to have my grandkids over here playing and saying, Granny, play My Little Ponies with me, or play cars, or put a puzzle together. I wanted them to think that, Granny might have different arms and legs, but she could still play with them.
How's this changed you emotionally?
It's slowed me down. It's made me realize I'm not in control of everything. And having raised my children by myself, and had a job with responsibilities, I always felt like I had everything in control, I controlled this, I controlled that. I took them to band practice, I took them to dance classes, I took them, I controlled the household. Now I don't control anything. And it's made me just slow down a little bit. I used to go through the house, and things that didn't belong in one room, I'd bundle all up and carry to the rooms. I take one thing at a time, because chances are I'm going to drop that one thing. And, so emotionally, it's made me very, very happy and wonderful. I think wonderfully of all of the people that have been there to help me. It's just, I've heard people say, well, when tragedy hits people, and I just, didn't know it. I didn't have a lot of tragedy in my life before that. I mean, I raised my kids alone. I had a bout of breast cancer, but nothing like this. And this, people will stop me and ask me about my arms and my legs, and I always have time to talk to them about it. Children, if they're curious about it but don't want to say something, I kind of open the dialogue first, because I think it's important that they know that, my disability's on the outside. You can't see, some people's are in the inside. Mine are right out here, and you can see them, but you can also overcome them to some extent.
Well, what was the turning point for you when you were really at a low point and you realized this is going to be okay?
I don't know. I still have low points. I try not to. I think I always knew I was going to walk. I just always knew that. And but when I had my low points, I would kind of allow myself. I remember one day in Fraser, I woke up and it was just a bad day. It was 7 o'clock, and I cried from 7 in the morning until 8 at night. And I did not take therapy, and my doctor came in, and I told him, I said, I'm crying today, and this is all I'm going to do today. I said, tomorrow I'll be better. I promise you I'll get up and work hard tomorrow. And it was kind of just being a little bit easy on myself, not pushing myself, but yet putting limits on how much pity I can have for myself.
Did the doctors ever diagnose exactly what
Not
caused the...
not exactly. They Dr. Pettigo, the hand surgeon, did my hands. Dr. Weaver did my legs. All of them seemed to think that it was a bacteria because I was so close to the area, and I could have had a cut. I could have, stepped on something, could have breathed something with all the stuff that was blowing around. It could have been anything that caused all that to happen. And, could have just been the wrong place, the wrong time, and so it happened.
What are your goals for the future? What do you see your life being like, say, 5 years, 10 years from now?
Well, I have contacted vocational rehab, and I'm getting ready, at least by the end of December, to have an assessment on what I would need to drive a car, whether I would need special controls, whether I would need to not use this hand, and because this hand is kind of at an angle, and I have one thumb joint, whether I can drive like that, but it will be an assessment. I would like to work again. I feel like I need to be busy and needed, and I need to do something. I don't know whether something to give back or just something to help other people, and I think I'll be able to do that. I really do.
Say something about your house and how the house came to you, and what March to Recovery, what role they played in that.
Well, I had been talking to Stephanie, who had her legs cut off, and she told me about March to Recovery. She said, I realized it wasn't, your house didn't fall on you or anything. She said, but you're truly a victim of the tornado. And she said, I think you need to call them and get with them and see if there is any help they can give you. And so she was a big part, and we still email, and she helped me so much with her positiveness, and helped me see that I could do things too. And so I think Stephanie first called Kathy, didn't she call you Kathy?
She actually contacted through Facebook. She said,
Oh, yeah.
she didn't know what to do.
And
She contacted on Facebook.
yeah, and she said call them, and so I did, and Kathy and Carolyn came out the first time, I think. Kathy the first, and then both of you the second, and started talking about different scenarios that might be available to me. Maybe they didn't think building a house was feasible because it was kind of winding down at that point, and they started looking around at maybe buying a house and having it redone to ADA requirements, and then I'm not sure but who talked to New Hope, and New Hope and March to Recovery decided to partner, and but Kathy told me that these houses were still being built, and that New Hope was willing to partner and look at the things that I might need and how they could be built in, and make it easier for me to live and be able to live on my own. And it was just amazing. I have one brother, and when I finally came to, I signed power of attorney over to him because I had no idea if I was even going to make it, even though I came to. And he had been working a lot with Kathy and New Hope too, and so they kind of got to see everything before I did, and they would come to the Kindred or down New Albany to the Robert E. Lee and say, "Oh, it's beautiful. You won't believe it when you see it. You're going to be so happy there." And when I first did get to see it, they took lots of pictures too. I have pictures from I guess groundbreaking on through. And when I finally did get to see it, it was just knocked my socks off. I mean, it was just like, I'm going to get to live here, and I will have access to my laundry. I'm not going to have to worry about downstairs. I'm not going to have to worry about carpeting and knocking into walls and everything. So it was the partnership, and then along with that, I think was the Lutheran Church then came in and became active and helpful in getting me like my lift chair here and a lot of my new appliances and my handheld shower and my different things that I needed and could use, and they were wonderful, and I've since been attending that church with Kathy for several Sundays, and they have all the people have been wonderful to me, and Pastor Woods, who's gone shopping with us a little bit. He's not a big shopper, but he's gone some. They've just
Now,
all
which church
become-
is this? Which?
Grace Lutheran.
Grace Lutheran, okay, great.
They-
New Albany?
Mm-hmm. They have just all become, another circle of friends and good Samaritans to help me.
I have to ask you about Truman's story. You were in the hospital. What happened to Truman?
Well, poor Truman. Truman lived with my daughter and son-in-law and my granddaughter for a while, and then he got a bit much. My daughter was pregnant, and she had her baby while I was still over at Jewish Hospital, and so Truman got taken to my brother, who had 2 dachshunds, and he fitted in quite well there. At one point, when I was at Kindred, my brother would bring him to me on Friday night and pick him up on Sunday night. And I assumed that I and the LPNs were putting everything over on everybody. And when I got ready to leave, I found out everybody knew that Truman came and spent the weekend. So, but then when I finally went to assisted living, he got to move in with me. And he's very comfortable here, as you can see.
That's right, young girl.
He just moved right at home. He follows me around a lot. I think he's afraid I might leave for another year and a half and not see him again. But yeah, and he's my comfort and company of an evening. And you can see that he's glad that things are back to normal. When the kids come and the grandkids come in, he's he's up and following them because he hopes they drop cracker crumbs or cheese chunks or whatever, and they play with him. So it's getting back to normal for him too.
And you're walking a mile a day, I understand?
Yep.
Are you doing therapy still too?
I am going to start therapy again. I haven't started. Matthew, who does my legs, I just recently got new sockets and a new type of leg and foot that has a bit more movement, ankle movement to it. So I will be going for some more therapy for that. And I'm not sure how many weeks I'll do that therapy, but I will be doing that. And probably at Southern Indiana Rehab. And so.
What do you want people that look back on the tornado and everything that happened after it, say 50 years from now, when this is in the museum, to remember about that time in Henryville and your life, and what do you think it's most important for people to remember?
That what a strong community we were. We had help from a lot of people, but the entire community was very strong. And once it was over with and they were back looking through things that they had lost and trying to pick up what they had, maybe they didn't maybe their house was completely gone and all they could pick up were a few pictures and a few sentimental things, that they were strong, that they came back and they built the school in a summer, that the people who got hurt, Stephanie, me, there were other people I know that got hurt and were in other hospitals, that they were strong too. They were fighting to get back home so they could put their places right and make our community grow, that nobody, that I haven't heard of a lot of people who just said, that's it, I believe in, this is not worth it. That I think that everybody who came through it stronger. I think probably their faith was increased. And I think they came through with an appreciation of the human spirit and human beings that would help, that would come and help.
When somebody says right now they're going through a really tough time in their life, what do you say to them?
Well, I think if people are going through a tough time, it really doesn't help to say, well, my time is tougher than yours. When you're going through it, it's tough on you, you know, and I think the only thing I would say is to just have faith, keep praying, you know, I feel that the Lord is with everybody, with what they're doing and what they're going through, and that, you know, things usually maybe don't work out the way you want them to, but they work out, and you know, you may end up on a different path. I truthfully thought I would live in Henryville the rest of my life. It's where I thought I would be. But when I was married, you know, I thought I would live with my children's father for the rest of my life, and they would grow up and I would have a very cushy life, laying on the patio drinking iced tea. It didn't turn out that way, but it turned out, you know, and it's an adventure. It's always an adventure. And, you know, you can take your time out to maybe mourn the what you've lost, but what's ahead of you is going to be something that's probably just as good, and something to look forward to. So